more likely to fall asleep. I'm going to do my best to get through this. It's going to take about an hour and a half, so I'm sorry. It'll be about 10 minutes. So this is just a refresher course for the communication part that everybody in this room has had already at some point, whether it was a couple of years ago or at a new teacher orientation. So y'all aren't going to be hearing anything new. The restraint part of it, unless I have somebody who wants to roll around the floor with me. Mr. Paris, Andy. We're just gonna do the communication part. So, all right. The reason we have to do this stems from two important reasons.
I didn't hear you, man.
Every time we walk in the building, there's a potential that we are going to have to break up a fight. And so we always have to keep in mind that we have to keep the students' well-being and safety in mind, even though they sometimes might not keep ours in mind. And also we have to cover our backsides in case we don't restrain them properly and one of them gets hurt. So, let's see. I'm not going to be showing any of the restraint techniques today. Coach Gray and I were just talking about how we're going to go about doing that. That'll probably be within the next couple of months. And so if you have any interest in wanting to learn those techniques, then just let me know. I'm going to create a list, I guess, of everybody who has already had the restraint portion, and we'll just go from there. So, let's see. The reason why we're doing this, though, is because of the restraint. We wouldn't be here if it was just because we need to learn how to communicate with students better. When I sat in the training a few years ago, he gave many examples of teachers all across the country who had the best intentions when trying to break up a fight, but ended up injuring the student in the process. Grabbing a student by the arm and trying to pull them away, dislocating an arm, breaking bones, students tripping and falling, breaking ankles, smothering students by trying to pin them down to the floor or what have you, and students with pre-existing lung or respiratory conditions, smothering them, or heart conditions. There are a lot of things that could happen, of course, and so as long as we are going through a training like this and doing what we're supposed to, then hopefully we will be covered. So, let's see. Hey everybody, I don't know if I printed up enough, but I have a crisis intervention handout. I got fancy this time. So y'all can take a look at that, and I will just go through explaining a few brief things, and that'll be it. So the definition of crisis, as far as we are concerned, is any situation where a student may bring harm to himself or herself or others, okay? Unless it is occurring, we cannot restrain anybody. We cannot restrain the student. The student could kick over a table or do whatever, and we can't just jump on and grab it. If they kick a table and it hits somebody, then that's a different story. But we can't just jump in and justify restraining students unless they are basically already in the act of hitting somebody or themselves. I don't know. So, let's see. In any other situation, it's just going to come down to how you manage your classroom. So this isn't really going to change any of your teaching styles. You're still going to go through the 6-step discipline plan and all the other processes that we have to go through. So the communication part of it is solely meant to de-escalate a situation, whether it's already gotten to a physical, altercation. We are trying to either keep it from happening if possible, but a lot of times, most of the times, I know, and we all know that it's going to get to that point before we can do anything about it. And so what we have to do once we get trained in the restraint is understand how to communicate through that process so that we aren't saying things that we aren't supposed to say that would make the situation worse for the student, anger the student even more, or, like I said, say things we shouldn't because it could our jobs, I guess. So, pre-crisis communication. Things that we want to look after is don't allow the students' attitude to affect yours, because it's extremely easy to get angry or upset when a student gets upset, and it happens every day. Of course, the best thing that we can do is just stay calm, let it run its course. If it's not immediately going into a physical thing, just let it run its course. Try and let them talk, try and talk calmly. And let's see. We need to get over our need and desire for compliance with the students, because if not, we're going to get into a power struggle with them. And that's not what it's about. It's not in that moment to them. It doesn't matter what you want. It's all about them. And so we just have to make sure that we're not worried about what the other students are thinking about how we're doing our jobs. That happens all the time, every single day. Something happens in my class, and all eyes immediately go to me, because they want to know what I'm going to do about it. So we can't worry about getting the student to do what they should be doing. We have to just worry about the situation in the moment. All right, so let's see. Focus on a solution rather than a problem. Of course, that one's kind of, everybody knows that. Don't ever talk about the consequences until the situation is over. As far as we go, administration handles consequences. So let's not immediately jump into what's going to happen to them. Let's just, like I said, try and talk, try and figure out what's going on if we can do that in that short period of time. Okay, so if we can't keep physical altercation from happening, then the only thing that should be coming out of our mouths if we're restraining students is you are being restrained because you blah, 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 you did this, you did that. You need to sound like a broken record. You don't need to say anything else. All right, because it'll just add to their aggression and could potentially anger them at you. They're already not going to they're not going to want you on them, of course, but they're not necessarily mad at you. If you say anything, whatever it may be, then that aggression could then turn towards you, and it could be a completely a whole other situation. All right, and post-crisis communication. In the event the student is injured during restraint, even if you did it properly, you will need to justify your decision in doing that. So like I said, you cannot restrain a student. Mr. Mark! Well, we can. Picking on you. That's how I do it in my class. I'm calling you out. All right. Sorry. All right, so you have to justify your decision. You never use phrases like, well, I just did what I had to do. I just did what I had to do is a completely wrong thing to say. They would not comply. It's not about them complying with what you want. It's about just taking care of the situation in the moment. Only state that you intervened because the student was hurting themselves or others. It's as simple as that. Use professional language when you are explaining that or having to document that. That's about it, I guess. Any questions or anything? Real quick, there was an example that our trainer gave us. Hypothetical situation. Let's just say that a student is not necessarily angry at another student in class, but they are completely acting up. And if this were a table, they jump up on the table. And there is a big problem there, of course, because what do? Do you restrain them? Do you, how do you go about restraining them? So anybody, answer me, what do you do in that kind of situation? If a student jumps up on, I have tables in my room, I don't have desks, but let's just say even your teacher desk, if a student just goes slap crazy and jumps up on your desk, what do you do? Well, yeah, okay, so of course you want to call an officer, but well, say it again, no, really, say it again.
She was waving a dog.
Put your money in. No. Okay. $5. All right, so no, this went downhill quick.
Is that student trying to hurt himself?
Good question.
He's trying to hurt himself or anyone else?
Good question. So there's a lot of there are a lot of factors that could be involved. Let's just say they're up there not necessarily hurting themselves, but just acting a fool. Getting turned down, so to speak. I don't know, sorry about that. What do you do? The answer is absolutely nothing. Because if you tried to go up to them, they could kick you in the face. If you tried to restrain them, you can't get up on the table with them and do the restraint and follow down move that some of y'all know. You can't do that because you could fall off. And if they fall off, everybody knows, of course, what would happen with that. So you don't do anything whatsoever. You just let it run its course. Try and communicate with them, and then if they start hurting themselves, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. That's a good question. Probably won't ever happen, ever, but it could. So call an officer. Call an officer. Immediately try and get somebody down there. Do not try and sweep their legs out from under them, Robbie. Like you said, don't do anything. Do not go near them. Just try and talk to them, and that's it. So, like I said, we will cover the restraint for a portion of you, and please let me know. I guess I may go ahead and create a list, and we can go ahead and cover that today and get a list of those of y'all who have already had the restraint training. Please let me know. And for those of y'all who are interested that haven't had it, let me know too. All right. Thank you.
Hey, one of my, even if I come to a room, and even when I was at the alternative school, and you get a student that tries to, I remember, I think it was Miss Brown's class in the old building. I went to get a young man, and he said that, I don't know what the exchange was, but it wasn't an exchange. The first thing I did was clear the room out. I took his audience away. So when they jump up on the table, focus on the other kids, hit the button, and when you take that audience away, then they'll comply with what you want them to do. Because the first thing I did, I told all the students, I didn't even talk to him. I just told all the students, I cleared them out by row. I said, this row, y'all go out, Ms. Brown, you take them to the cafeteria. And before the last student got out of there, he was up going with me to the office. And I never said a word. So once you take that audience away, if Jake was in here when we was at the alternative school, I had another young man. We went to get him, and I told him to come on. And he said, well, I ain't going nowhere until you tell me why I'm going to the office. I said, well, that's why I want to take you to the office, so I can talk to you, but I ain't going nowhere. So what I did, I went and got the video camera, had Officer Rose standing outside the door. And when I put the video camera on him, I cleared all the students out. And when I got the video camera, he got up, man, turn that camera off, and walked straight to me. And when he got outside, Officer Rose restrained him. So the biggest thing is when you take that audience away, then you know, that's all that they're doing is putting on a performance in front of their peers. And the thing we can't do is get caught up into a back and forth, because once we do that, it's just a lose-lose for us, and it's a win-win for him. So if somebody jumps up on the table, you know, hit the button and just move your students out in an orderly fashion, and he'd be up on that table all by himself, and I guarantee you he or she'll come down, because now they're not performing in front of anybody. If they, I know probably some of you were thinking, if they break out in a fight, you were thinking in your mind, at least one person here was thinking, well, I'm not going to do anything. Well, you can't do that. I'm not saying jump in the middle of it. You know, with these high school kids, especially if it's two big old high school boys, you can't just sit there and not do anything. You're required to do something. But I'm not saying jump into the middle of it if it's two big old boys. But you need to either tell them you got to make an effort to tell them, y'all stop, y'all stop, and then a lot of times what'll happen, some of the kids will help us, separate them. And the biggest thing is being where we're supposed to be so we can get it before it gets started. That's the biggest deterrent of it all, is being on our post to where we're supposed to be so that once the words start, they start having words, then a lot of times, if you get it on that point, then one of them will have a cooler head and allow you to separate or comply with you. Yes, sir.
Another thing too, that you can't restrain unless, if it's two people going at it or more, you can't just jump in by yourself. You have to, as quickly as possible, get somebody in there. You can't ask a student,
Right.
of course, but you need to try and get another teacher, because if you restrain without somebody else, you
Right.
might create a bunch of bags. So
Right. He said if it's two or more people, you have to have, I guess, help in restraining. The biggest thing, y'all, is until help comes, if they're in there fighting, just try to do something as far as giving them a command. I'm not saying dive in the middle of it, but as far as just giving them a command to stop, and then getting those other students, into a safe situation until, the administration or the officers can get down there. But I think the biggest deterrent is trying to calm it down before it gets started, and that's us being in a supervision position so that we can see it before it gets started. Yes, Coach?
I know that kind of stupid, dumb question, but like, what about using you talking about with video cameras? Most people in here have those little phones with video cameras on it. If you're acting a fool, you don't have them. Can you videotape it in there? Send it you. And then for evidence or whatever. You understand what I'm saying? Would that be considered?
I always assume that kind of crossed.
They have to have a compliance. It's not
I'm trying to think of an example. Can you give me an example?
I mean, like the other day I had a kid sleeping, I was like, don't let me send this. I took like I was taking a picture, and I held it up. Well, that woke him up in a heartbeat, because I said, I got evidence right here on it. Sent to his folks. I said, if I had to sit down with your parents, if I was sleeping in class, that just got his attention. That the whole class kind of got upset.
Well, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to put, what I always do in those situations, I try to put myself in the parent's situation.
I mean, we got cameras all in this building, so
Yeah.
like in the classroom, we don't have them.
Yeah, but I think we need to, before we start videotaping them, I think we need to refer to our classroom management procedures. I don't think the video phone need to be our first thing.
But if it is a kind of like what you were talking about, one individual who is extreme on a table or something, I mean,
I think if it's-
throwing chairs in the room.
Well, I think if it's something extreme, like they just lose it, and for your own proof of how you handled it, I mean, I don't see, if a kid is losing it, and you have the forethought to pull out your phone and videotape it, but just make sure in that video you saying all the right things. You're not, you don't want to be like a dash cam on all these cop shows that we've seen.
Have to go down
And
there,
you
though.
saying all the wrong things, and then you messing yourself up. But as it being a tool, as far as somebody and you trying to document how bad it was, I think doing that probably wouldn't be a bad idea but just somebody sleeping, probably not. Yes, sir.
What about the kids coming toward another kid in a fighting manner? Do we get in between, reach out, or?
Well, if you could get there, and just say, whoa,
No grab?
no, I mean, because you grab one, the other one may hit the one that you grab. But if you get between them and say, oh, and then try to separate one, but like if it was me, I'd put myself between the two. But I try to separate one, and then or separate them both, and then try to, whichever one is the calmest, try to get him to disengage out of the situation. And I guess there's really not a perfect answer, because a lot of it is reaction based on what's going on. But most of the time, in my experiences, is if we're there being where we're supposed to be, a lot of times we can stop the situation before it starts. Because that's out of everything that we're talking about, the biggest thing that'll get us in hot water is not too much of what you say, it's not being where you were supposed to be before it happened. That's the biggest thing. So that's the question that will be that we will have to be able to answer. You know, I always bring it up, and I keep it out in front of us, the real life situation that we had here several years ago. And some of these teachers that sitting in here had to go to court with me and get on the stand. And they could all, those lawyers asked them the same question that they asked me. Well, they asked them, the question they asked them was, where were you? And the question they asked me was, where were your teacher supposed to be? And thank goodness that they were able to say I was standing at my door. And it was between lunch. You know, some things stick in your brain and you never forget. And it was between lunch, and lunch was just being released, so it was an unusual amount of students in the hallway. And by the time we got through the crowd of students that were standing around, other students had separated. So when that answer was given, and what, I got 2 or 3 of y'all in here right now? Well, I think one just left. But when that was given, then it was, okay, thank you, you may step down. And that was the same thing that was said to me. Where were your teachers supposed to be? And that was the answer that I gave. They were at their door in the crowd or whatever. And all of our answers were the same. And they kept us separated so the other one couldn't hear what the other ones were saying. So when I was talking, those 3 teachers were in the back, and when the one teacher was talking, all of the other one of us were in the back. And if any of us would have deviated from what the other ones had said, then we'd have had an issue. Or the bell rang and I was in there finishing up with a student. Instead of being at my post, they would have sunk us. They would have sunk them, they would have sunk the school, trying to get insurance, and if they can't sue the school, then they sue us individually. Okay, so that's why when I walk around, I may stick my head in your room and say, get to your, you need to move to your door. It's not that I'm trying to be difficult. It's just that I'm trying to save all of us some unnecessary headache. And it's real easy to a student to hold you up, after class to ask a question. I mean, it's real easy. But you need to take them with you and say, well, come on to the door and I'll answer your question. Okay, because nobody asks questions until something happens. And those of you that were not here, she had a pre-existing brain tumor that when she got into the fight, it actually saved her life. So it was kind of a bittersweet thing, but she still had to go through surgery and all this kind of stuff. But one of the first questions they asked teachers were, I know they asked me, was where were your teachers and where were they supposed to be and what were they supposed to be doing? And we were able to answer that. So in this whole restraint thing, I think if we, and y'all do a great job of being on your posts. Y'all do a great job of standing by your door. And sometimes I come by and we're a little bit slow, but that's the purpose that we do these things, to keep you reminded that it's not just something else to do. It's for your protection, and so you won't have no unnecessary headaches. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clemens, and we'll identify the other ones because we got to do a physical part of this. So we'll identify the ones that I guess that went through the training before, and then we'll set up a time so we can do the physical part. Any other questions on restraint or supervision or anything like that? All right, Ms. Robinson. All right.
Grace said, we're about to go through SACs at the end of the school year, and we know that it'll be sometimes in March. We don't have the specific dates yet, but hopefully we will know that soon. And for those of you that have been teaching here a while, don't get this confused with what we used to call our little SACs committees. the one that is in the teacher handbook, because, and we will still do those things like student of the month and the parent night and Hawk Herald, and we'll even be doing some school tours very soon. But all those little things are just going to kind of be extra duties that, you know, we just have to do. Those are the things that make our school, you know, what it is, just the way we run things. This is actually what is going to be your SACS committees. So I'm sure that all of you kind of looked at it and found your name on this list. If not, you might want to flip through it and look through it now. The good thing about this is that it's not going to be so different than what we're already used to. And we're going through TEEPS, and we all know about standards and indicators and different levels of the indicators. And this is very much designed the same way. And I'll show that to you when we talk about the standards of quality packet. But it'll probably be a good idea if right now you kind of group yourself with your committee. I know that you all don't like to move around much, but we're going to do an activity in just a minute where you're going to need to be with your group. If y'all go ahead and do that, then I'll explain further. And on there it has your standard chairperson and the assistant chairperson and recorder, and then of course your members. That's just kind of how it flows. Standard 2, governance and leadership, and then 3, teaching and assessing for learning. Standard 4, resources and support systems. 5, using results for continuous improvement. And then we added 2 standards, which is standard 6, student achievement results, and it tells under there what that committee will do. You're going to examine student achievement results, and that'll be like crunching data. And then we have standard 7, which is stakeholder feedback, and this group will analyze stakeholder feedback because we'll be sending out a lot of surveys and things like that. And then on that back page, it's got like additional little committees, so please look and see if you are listed there. And you really won't have to do anything until close to the time when we actually have the SACS committee, the external committee, come in. All right. Now let's all take this one, and I went ahead and had holes punched in this when we ran these off this morning because I really feel like you'll want to start your notebook. And as your committee does any kind of work or as you meet, you can just kind of add to your workbook, and I think that'll make it easier in the end because we'll be gathering artifacts and then we'll be writing a report as well. Like each section in each committee will write a report. And, you know, more details to come later. I have another meeting over at the board at the end of this month, and then I'm going for some more training in November. So as I get the information, as it's rolled out to me, I'll just roll it out to you as well. All right. Now, what we want to do today is make sure you just send one person from your committee and get a piece of this chart paper and a marker and a highlighter.
The green, guys.
I love it. Yeah.
You're a reporter, huh?
Oh, I can just write. Your handwriting is much.
I can't write, but
You suck, Jay. You've been demoted. No,
accept my demotion.
I did what I'm supposed to do.
And basically, I think everybody may want to go ahead and get a highlighter. Go ahead and get highlighters for your group because in the end, we will all be highlighting. You'll write on your chart paper and we'll highlight as well.
That's all you do.
You'll highlight for everybody. Yes, for this big. Kind of use as an example. And so everybody else kind of pay attention because you're going to do yours the same way. Some people, if you have standard 6 or standard 7, you do not have any indicators right now. But you will have a section of material that we'll get to you very soon that you will read and it'll tell you how that you'll do your section. Okay, so those of you that have standard 6 and 7, you're still going to highlight when we share, but you just don't have anything to present right now. Okay, the first standard, which is purpose and direction, this one I'll go ahead and tell you is just going to simply be like our mission and vision statement. It's going to deal with that type of thing. But your first indicator is the school engages in a systematic, inclusive, and comprehensive process to review, revise, and communicate a school purpose for student success. All right, that's indicator 1-1. And you'll notice that you have 4 levels. This is just like our TEKS. Level 1 being the lowest level, level 4 being the highest. Now, if we're level 3, of course, you know, we may be level 3 on some things, but we're always going to be shooting for level 4. So what we want to really look at are levels 3 and 4. We don't want to look at 2 and 1. So if you'll notice, 3 and 4 are very similar. Okay, those are similar. But there's a little bit of difference in the language. And so what we want to do now is to define the difference of the language between level 3 and level 4. And what I want you to do in your groups is I want you to write the different language. Okay, so if you'll look at those, it says level 4 is the process for review, revision, and communication of the school's purpose is clearly documented and a record of the use and results of the process is maintained. That's what it takes to be a level 4. Well, level 3 simply says the school's process for review, revision, and communication of the purpose statement is documented. So what is the difference there?
Clearly.
Right, okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to highlight, you can go ahead, I'll tell you what, just go ahead and write the words on your chart paper. And then when we share, we'll go through the tail and let everybody highlight. You highlight the difference in the terminology, the difference in the language. What, you don't have to write the standard.
Our
You have to
particular
do-
standard though?
Yes, you're going to do your particular standard. Yes, I'm sorry. So standard 1, you're going to do this for your standard 2, you're going to do this for your standard and your indicators.
For all of these?
Yes, all of the indicators.
You need to be a little more clear.
6, you won't have any. 6 and 7 will not have any, but when we start highlighting, you will share. You'll share out. I know you are.
Do we
You
use our
gotta stop.
highlighters to highlight?
Yes. Use your highlighters to highlight.
You would have been a little more clear the first time.
I'm so sorry. I know I'm not quite as engaging. I have to check it.
All right, indicator 4.1, line 1, clearly defined policies and procedures. Line 3, formal systematic processes. And the next to the last line, all positions necessary. All right, 4.2, first line, solely. Second line, fiercely. Third line, every. Fourth line, measurably demonstrate. And then the next to the last line, concentrate on achieving. All right, 4.3, line 1, collaboratively. Line 3, all. Line 4, valid measures. Line 5, continuously. And the last line, systematically. Okay, 4.4, first line, all and exceptional. Third line, sufficient. 4.5, first line, modern, fully functional. Third line, use the resulting data. Last line, continuously improve. 4-6, first line, clearly. Second line, coordinate. Third line, all and valid and reliable measures. Fifth line, regularly. And last line, all. Or 7. First line, clearly. Third line, needs of all. Fourth line, valid and reliable measures. Fifth line, regularly evaluate. And last line, all.
Good job.
Look at that.
Alright, indicator 5.1, consistently used is line 1. All classrooms and courses, line 4. And systematically evaluated, line 5. Line 1 and 2, all data sources. And line 5, all school personnel. Line 1, regularly and systematically. And line 2, individualized. 5.4, line 1, clearly defined. Line 3, significant. And line 3, also systematically. And 5.5, lines 4 and 5, appropriate degrees of sophistication.
We tried.
We did try.
Okay, y'all did a good job on that. So you can give yourself power, purpose and direction. And we're going to have someone come up with their indicators. And what everybody else needs to do at this time, everybody should have a highlighter. And as they're going through and they're defining their differences, each person needs to highlight on those indicators.
Yep, all right.
The differences. And several of you are like wondering why we're doing this. This is so that you can really read the standard and start trying to understand the standard, because we know this is not the easiest thing in the world. Okay.
I just wish we get 10 to 11. 10 to 11.
All right, we have the first standard here.
Read it like you announced a football game.
Come on, announce. Yes.
Clearly documented.
1.1, there were several ones. The first one was clearly documented, as opposed to just documented. Then it went down, it said record of the use and results. And it says with fidelity. We have selected at random, as opposed to selecting from a certain committee. Then we have clearly focuses. So we had clearly documented record of the use and results with fidelity, selected at random, and clearly focuses. Then on 1.2, on the next one, the top, we have clearly evident as opposed to just evident. We have always reflected in a measurable way. We have a strong commitment, and also they hold one another accountable, as opposed to Okay, so clearly evident, always reflected, measurable way, strong commitment, hold one another accountable. And then 1.3, the last one.
Might be moving too fast. Slow down.
Doing wonderful.
These are all highlighted on the first, on the fourth tier. First one. Okay, 1.3 is require the use, as opposed to just have the use. It actually says require the use. Work collaboratively and consistently. Work collaboratively and consistently. We have authentic and meaningful. We have build and sustain ownership. Then we have systematically maintain, use, and communicate.
It works.
Are y'all getting that?
Build and sustain ownership.
Okay. We have thorough analysis of a broad range of data. Have to have a thorough analysis, not just a regular old analysis. Not a high school student analysis. Okay, we need all improvement goals. We also need to hold one another accountable again. It needs to be evaluated regularly and implemented with fidelity. So those on the 1.3 were require the use, work collaboratively and consistently, authentic and meaningful, build and sustain ownership, systematically maintain, use, and communicate. We have thorough analysis of a broad range of data, all improvement goals, hold one another accountable, evaluated regularly, and implemented with fidelity.
Number 2.
Here, right here. I ain't reading it.
Stuck to it. Okay, what am I doing? Oh, that's always a good option.
Okay, clearly, I'm sorry, we're 2.1. Clearly and directly. We have mechanisms, clear requirements, giving direction, clearly and directly, mechanisms, clear requirements, giving direction. For 2.2, evaluate, implemented, formally adopted, required, and student learning. Evaluate, implemented, formally adopted, required, student learning. 2.3, consistently and clear, achievement and instruction, Back up.
Way to go.
Okay. Top line, consistently. It's not in order, I'm sorry. Achievement, instruction, and then clear. Is that better? Okay. Okay, so for 2.4, let's look at the first line. Awesome. deliberately and consistently, fourth and sixth words on the first line. Second line, encourage, support. Line 3, all stakeholders. Line 4, actively, consistently. Line 5, rigorous. And the last line, again, all stakeholders. 2.5. Line 1, consistently. Line 5, proactive and persistent. Line 6, positive, strong sense of community. And then 2.6, first line, primary. Line 2, ensuring. Line 3, consistently. Line 4, analyzed carefully. 2.9.
There's no Everybody blame me, Jay. Do you see how when one person drops the ball, see how you fumbled and it was my fault?
All right, good afternoon. Here we go. We have 12. I hope everybody has their highlighters warmed up. 3.1, that align with the school's purpose. Evidence clearly indicates the same high learning expectations. 3.2, multiple assessments of learning, systematically monitor, systematic collaborative process. We're in order. I promise we're in order. We didn't go random.
We gotta find it.
Systematically is on line 2.
Right, thank you. Tell them what line it is.
And systematic collaborative process is line 4 and 5. It's at the end of 4 and the beginning of 5.
Because what they have, you don't tell them what line it is, they gotta find it.
3.3, first line, second word, are consistent and deliberate in.
Right.
If they get 3.2.
What line is it?
No, it
You
was
don't have to
good.
count the words.
Line 4, needs of each student and consistently. 3.4, line 2, beyond classroom observation. 3.5, line 2, on a regular schedule and frequent collaboration. Line 3, implement. Line 4, productive. Line 6, are a party of daily routine of school staff. Line 7, can clearly link collaborative to improvement results.
Kelly, you turned it. Sorry.
3.6, first line, systematically used. Line 3, requires the use of multiple measures. Line 5, specific and immediate feedback. Line 1, all, and systematic. Line 3, high. Line 4, valid and reliable. Line 2, evaluated, and families have multiple ways of staying informed. .9 and related adult, line 3, line 4, significant. Line 10, 3.10, line 1, consistently. Without fail across all grade levels, line 4. And line, next to last line, formally evaluated. .11, line 1, rigorous. And the individual, line 3. Rigorously and measurable.
No, that's line 9. The program builds measurable. That's line 4. At the beginning and at the end.
Beginning and the end of line 4. And 3.12, line 1, systematically and continuously. And individualized.